Okay, let's jump right into this explainer on the LDET. That stands for the Labeling Drone Endurance Test. Now, on the surface, this kind of just looks like a quirky little exercise, right? But it's actually this incredibly intense behavioral experiment designed to push human patience to its absolute limit. It literally turns everything we think we know about determination and grit totally upside down. And honestly, the results are absolutely mind-blowing.
So, I want you to ask yourself right now, do you think you have the willpower to pass this test? Like, do you have the mental fortitude to complete what seems like a ridiculously simple task? Because most people walk into this thinking, oh, this is an absolute breeze. They just assume their sheer willpower is going to carry them right across the finish line. But, well, as we're about to see, willpower is actually a really fragile thing when the deck is entirely stacked against you.
All right. Section 1, the Drone Willpower Challenge. A deceptively simple setup. Let's just set the scene and look at the baseline experiment before we reveal the big trick. Okay, so the basic task sounds totally doable. You just take a cheap toy drone, hover it in the air, and stick 20 cable labels on it, one by one. Then, you write the numbers 1 through 20 on those labels with a marker, and finally, perform a precision hover over this little A4-sized landing pad before setting it down safely. Simple, right? I mean, you just need steady hands, a little bit of focus, maybe some basic coordination, and you're good.
But here's where things get wild. Section 2, the hidden traps. The game is rigged. And it turns out, this test is actually a psychological obstacle course, perfectly designed for you to fail.
Yeah, the creators weren't actually measuring your drone flying skills at all. They were measuring how quickly you break. So the crucial point here is that they stack these downright infuriating hidden traps against you. First off, the labels have this incredibly weak adhesive, meaning a slight breeze or even just the vibration from the drone makes them fall right off, forcing you to reattach them over and over. Then the marker you have to use, it's physically tied to the drone's wing, so you're forced into these incredibly awkward, literally impossible postures just trying to write while flying. Oh, and they also artificially added a 0.3 to 0.7 second delay to the controller. That creates this maddening lag. And look, if the physical challenges weren't enough, there's the psychological torture. Every single time you stick a label, you have to verbally chant, "I won't give up," all while a soothing automated voice plays over the speakers every 3 minutes telling you it's okay to fail. It is just pure, concentrated temptation to quit.
Which brings us to Section 3, how personalities react. A descent into madness. Let's look at how this builds into pure comedy, as different personality types completely melt down under all this pressure.
It's so fascinating you see this hilarious contrast in reactions. On one hand, we have the analytical perfectionists, usually your INTP or INTJ types. At the 5-minute mark, they are completely deadpan, just calmly applying labels. But by their breaking point around 20 minutes, they quietly turn off the drone, sit down, and actually start delivering a thesis-level explanation on how this isn't a lack of willpower, it's simply a failure of physics and structural design errors. It's so wildly serious. And then, on the flip side, you have the impulsive, sensation-seeking types. By 3 minutes in, the drone has already crashed multiple times. By 10 minutes, they are just laughing, asking, "Is this a comedy show?" And by 12 minutes, they've abandoned the labels entirely and are just scribbling on the drone body with the marker, straight up declaring they never had the will to pass anyway.
Now, for the highly anxious, over-adapting participants, the stress escalation is visceral. It's intense. At 3 minutes, their hands are shaking so badly, they press too hard and destabilize the drone. At 10 minutes, they crash into a wall and literally start tearing up, only to tragically try and launch the thing again. But it peaks at 15 minutes. The psychological load becomes so incredibly heavy, they experience what's called mirror syndrome. Basically, they get so stressed they actually start writing the numbers completely backwards, like writing a 71 instead of a 17. It's wild.
And we definitely can't forget our analysts and jokers. The analytical types, they actually try to scientifically beat the test. Realizing the adhesive is weak, they literally try moving the hovering drone closer to the room's heater to activate the glue. And when they eventually fail because the marker string gets tangled in the rotor, they actually email a spreadsheet of their failure data to the researchers. You can't make this up. Meanwhile, the joker types treat the whole thing as content. They write "help" on the floor with the marker, and in a final act of desperation around 15 minutes, they resort to literally licking the labels to try and make them stick. It is absolute chaos in that room.
So, Section 4. Who actually succeeds? The anomaly. After watching literally everyone hilariously fail, we have to ask the ultimate question. Does anyone actually pass this rigged test?
Well, the reality is a measly 5 to 8% success rate. Almost everyone fails, and this incredibly low number signals a massive shift in how we need to analyze this data. Think about it. If 92 to 95% of people fail, is this really a test of individual willpower at all?
The answer is a resounding no. When we break down what actually creates that tiny 5 to 8% success group, as you can see here, success isn't about sheer determination. It's a massive slice of prior drone experience. We're talking 20+ hours. It's about having perfect room conditions, like good lighting and zero drafts. And it's about pure dumb luck, like your hand movements accidentally syncing perfectly with the drone's wobble. Willpower? That is just a tiny 10% sliver of the whole equation here. The successful person was most likely just a quiet engineering student with a ton of drone experience, sitting in a quiet room, whose hand rhythm just luckily matched that laggy controller.
Which leads us to Section 5, the willpower myth, reframing failure. This really brings us to the most empowering takeaway of this entire explainer. What's really fascinating is what the researchers found when they actually tweaked the experiment. If you alter just one tiny variable, like, say, making the string tying the marker to the drone just 5 centimeters longer, or making the label adhesive slightly stronger, guess what? The previous winners fail and completely new people succeed. This proves that the outcome is entirely situational. It's not about some inner well of strength. It's about exactly how your specific traits interact with a very specific environment.
And this exposes the core myth we all operate under, right? The idea that success is purely a product of free will and determination. But the reality is that success is heavily dictated by environment, physical conditions, and chance. If you fail a rigged test, it's not because you lack willpower. It's because under those specific conditions, 92% of humanity was mathematically destined to fail right alongside you. Put that successful drone pilot in a noisy room with a slight breeze, and they failed just as fast as the joker who licked the label.
So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought, perfectly captured in this quote from the researchers. Success is not a victory of free will, but a victory of environment and physical conditions. So ask yourself, where else in your life are you blaming your own willpower or beating yourself up for a failure when you should really be looking at the environment? Maybe you don't lack grit. Maybe you're just trying to ride on a flying drone with a terrible marker. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and I highly encourage you to look at the unwinnable games in your own life through this completely new lens.